Hello my friends. Today we're going to explore the lore in the first half of the quest called A New Beginning. The objectives we're going to hit is getting equipped, the attitude of the knife, shelter and shields, and water from blood, which basically takes us all the way to, spoilers, the first spice dream. Standard disclaimer, we won't be nitpicky about anything that's required for game mechanics. We'll be accepting the relative abundance of resources that are there to enable the survival aspect of the game, and since this is an alternate timeline, we'll be accepting any changes at face value.
But fear not, Off-worlder. Noctua can cover the ground between us with little effort.
I really don't know why Zantara keeps calling us off-worlder. He confessed to not being a Fremen himself, so that just seems rude.
Figure out how to craft yourself some clothing. That Maula outfit won't cut it out here.
I know it's usually mentioned together with pistol, so Maula Pistol, but Maula in Fremen means slave. Since we crash landed in a prisoner transport, we're probably wearing a prisoner's uniform. So calling it Maula is absolutely correct. The word itself comes from Arabic. In early Islamic society, it could refer to a freed slave in relation to their former master, and it could also mean protector. So Maula Pistol also makes sense, as it protects you from others.
The War of Assassins has left debris scattered all over this sector. Salvage metal from the wreckage with your cutter and use it to make a Maula pistol and darts. Don't let the Imperial disdain for ranged weapons lead you astray. Very few people are foolhardy enough to use shields this deep in the sands, and that is to your advantage.
So in the span of 30 seconds, we got 4 lore references, and I think all of them were canonically correct. Let's unpack them. First of all, the War of Assassins is a limited form of warfare that's permitted under the Great Convention and the Guild Peace. The aim of the War of Assassins is to minimize collateral damage, killing innocent bystanders and civilians. The rules prescribe a formal declaration of intent and even restrict what kind of weapons you can use. Looking back at the intro cinematic, the phrasing isn't quite right.
The Emperor declared a full-scale war of assassins.
A war of assassins between the Atreides and the Harkonnen can only be declared by the Atreides and Harkonnen. The Emperor would certainly acknowledge, though, that their forms have been obeyed. Anywho, there's even a book of assassins that describes what kind of poisons you can and cannot use, and there's a whole chapter about how to circumvent the Great Convention. If you want more details, I have a whole research piece on the Great Convention and the War of Assassins at DuneNavigator.com. An additional piece that isn't mentioned here, and I don't know if you'll have it in the game, is the importance of the Judge of the Change. If you remember Liet Kynes from both the books and the movies, Kynes was the Imperial planetologist, but also the Judge of the Change. The Judge of the Change is someone appointed by the Emperor and the Landsraad High Council to monitor a change of fief, as in the original timeline, but also to oversee the formal battle in a War of Assassins. The Judge of the Change is basically a referee with absolute power. He can only be challenged in front of the Landsraad High Council with the Emperor present. So that was one. Zantara mentioned the cutter ray, which we covered in the first video, and also the Maula pistol, the naming of which we already discussed. The one thing I would note is that it's canonically correct that it shoots darts, although in the terminology of the Imperium, it's described as a spring-loaded weapon that shoots poisoned darts. And then finally, there was a reference to being foolhardy to use shields in the open sands. And this is something that we learn in the books very early on as the Atreides arrive on Dune. Paul asks why they don't shield the harvesters if the worms are such a nuisance, and Tufir explains that even a body-sized shield sends worms into a killing frenzy. So while I was doing all of that, we went from the mission objective called Getting Equipped to one that's called The Attitude of the Knife. Now in-game it seems like it refers to you getting ready for violence, but in the books, Attitude of the Knife is actually a quote from the collected sayings of Muad'Dib by the Princess Irulan. And the full quote goes, Arrakis teaches the attitude of the knife, chopping off what's incomplete and saying, now it's complete, because it's ended here.
It's obvious you have some but nothing can truly prepare you for what the desert has in store. Hone your skills and harden yourself to the violence you must do to survive. Remember, Arrakis will sharpen you. or kill you.
So this one isn't necessarily a lore reference, but I felt like it rhymes well with the Fremen saying, God created Arrakis to train the faithful. And speaking about training, I think I'll do a whole separate video on the abilities and how they relate to the lore. If you're interested in more details, I have lore research articles on both Piranha Bindu and The Voice at DuneNavigator.com.
Without a still tent, you're easy prey to the sandstorms that sweep across the desert. Those storms tear flesh from bone and shred metal like paper. Unless you'd like to share a cave with some scavengers, your best bet is to build your own shelter. Build a construction tool and place out a sub-fief console. You'll be claiming a portion of the planet's surface for your very own, or rather borrowing it from the Emperor. I'm a little hazy on the specifics.
I love the fact that you claim territory by placing a sub-fief console. As you probably know, the Dune universe is a futuristic version of a feudal society. So when the Atreides arrive on Arrakis, they actually receive the planet as their fief from the Emperor. So it would make a lot of sense that you would get kind of a sub-fief. If I understand it correctly, in this alternate timeline, you get the sub-fief directly from the Emperor.
Seal your base, Offworlder. Maintain good water discipline, and it will keep you alive. You've done well licking flowers and sucking sap, but you need a consistent source of water. And the best source out here is blood. Extract it, store it, refine it, and drink it. Raw if you're really desperate. And don't mind throwing up. Actually, don't drink it, unless you really have to.
Getting water from blood makes a lot of sense, even if it wasn't established in the lore, so no notes.
Sector weather alert. A large sandstorm is approaching.
This was the first time I came across a sandstorm in the game, and I completely misjudged how quickly it'll be upon me. So while you enjoy watching me try to get back to my base before I die, let me talk about what a Coriolis sandstorm is. The terminology of the Imperium at the end of the original Dune describes it as any major sandstorm on Arrakis, where winds across the open flatlands are amplified by the planet's own revolutionary motion to reach speeds up to 700 kilometers per hour. That's about 430 miles per hour, for those of you who enjoy Imperial units. The first time we hear about the Coriolis storms in the book, we're still on Caladan, and Paul is telling Tufir how he studied about the storms. These storms build up across 6,000 or 7,000 kilometers of flatlands, feed on anything that can give them a push. Coriolis force, other storms, anything that has an ounce of energy in it. They can blow up to 700 kilometers an hour, loaded with everything loose that's in their way. Sand, dust, everything. They can eat flesh off bones and edge the bones to slivers. Fun. I love the Bindu sprint, but every time I use it, I can't stop myself imagining later the second, running across the desert in the Sci-Fi Channel's Children of Dune miniseries.
Probably feeling it by now, Offworlder. Spice. It's everywhere on Arrakis. The air, the sand, the blood. It prolongs life, expands consciousness, and triggers some very vivid dreams.
No, it doesn't. I mean, yes, it prolongs life, and it has many beneficial properties. That's why the noble houses across the universe take spice on occasion. But there's millions of Fremen on Arrakis, and they don't all become prescient messiahs. To take advantage of the mind-expanding properties of spice, you have to have specialized training. So this one's canonically correct. Muad'Dib is indeed a shadow on the smaller moon of Arrakis, but it's also a constellation. What's interesting about it is that the tail points to the north, so you can use it much like the North Star on Earth.
Observe this valley, sacred to the Ichwan Bedwine.
Ichwan Bedwine is the collective name for the Fremen. It literally means Fremen brotherhood. Ichwan means brotherhood in Arabic, and Bedouin we assume from the desert-dwelling nomads, the Bedouins.
Here, Wali faced the trials of Arkle, proving their knowledge of the Fremen ways.
Wali is how you describe untrained Fremen youth, basically adolescents, before they pass the test of Arkle and are accepted into adulthood and become full members of the tribe. The Trials of Akel is an upgrade to what we have in the books. In the books, it's called the Test of Akel. Akel means reason, so it's the test of reason. Originally, it's called the 7 Mystic Questions, beginning with, who is it that thinks? Here's a quote from Stilgar. We'll give you a name, manling, Stilgar said, in the time of Mihna, at the Test of Akel. Mihna is the season for testing Fremen youths who wish admittance to manhood. We know from the books that one of these tests is riding a sandworm, but usually happens at the age of 12.
Find the Fremen, she said.
This is a gruesome but obvious nod to the Villeneuve movies.
7 tests, 7 steps. Set your feet.
Or the aforementioned 7 mystic questions.
Follow the uncertain path. Keep moving. The only true death is stagnation.
Again, it's not a full-blown lore reference, but it's kind of the overarching theme of Dune, especially if you read through until God Emperor, the 4th book in the series, where the Golden Path is basically Leto the second trying to prevent humanity from collapsing, from dying because of stagnation, because of being content. So he imposes his Golden Path to keep for the theme, awaken humanity and ensure its survival. Okay, I think we're gonna stop here and pick it up in the next video. If you found this lore review interesting, please let me know by liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. And definitely leave a comment if you've seen something that I skipped over. If you want more lore, you can find me at dunenavigator.com. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.